Okay, so good morning, everyone. I'm very pleased to have, starting this first event, albeit late, of the year 2021, with Paul Barker and John Hall and Nathan Theo Niker from South Africa. Uh, Paul is from Ireland, and Paul is from from Leeds at the
Well,
moment.
it's near
Yeah,
Ireland.
we are having him from Leeds, and John is from Ireland. So Nathan is from South Africa. So we have quite a bit of a mixed bag here, and I'm in coming in from London, and we have a host of people. There's Jill Doran, all of us are here from London. So now, the main thing, the reason why I thought this was a good topic, we'll go first into the Makar buildup. Makar is a sign of Capricorn, and Saturn is going to transit. Well, it is there. It's been transiting for about a year now. It went in January last year. And it will continue to until it hits, goes into the next sign, Aquarius. Hopefully Jupiter is also with Saturn, and there's like a whole build up there, which is what we will be tackling. And the other thing which is really interesting is the Mercury retrograde. I often feel that Mercury retrograde is really powerful, and they are like trigger points. They just sort of shoot off, and because it happens so often, we feel that they are sort of we've got used to it, but I find them very potent. And especially now with the build up, I'm going to share the screen, and after this we are going to do the chart of few nations, the Chaitra Shukla Pratipad. The Chaitra Shukla Pratipad is, Chaitra is the month, the lunar month. And sorry, Margaret, can you unmute? Yeah. So Chaitra is a lunar month, and when the sun and the moon, that is when we have the new moon, that's when the Hindu calendar begins. And that's when it's a little bit like setting up like the New Year chart for a lot of nations on 1st of January, which the Western astrologers do, but we do it through the Chaitra Shukla, that is the month of March. So we are going to now just zoom into, I'm going to share my screen. And I'm going to first, hang on one sec, sorry. Oops. Yes, so there we go. I'm going to just first do a little presenting thing. And there is a website that I came across. Can everybody see this?
Yes.
The presentation?
Yes.
Okay, so here, if you see, let me just, how do I start? Hang on. From current slide. Okay, so if you see here, this is one of it, this buildup is starting to happen. This is sun. Can everybody see clearly? It's a little bit sort of tiny, but in the other charts it's a little bit more evident. But in a minute I'm going to share my chart. But what is interesting is I went to look back at what happened in 62, because remember, we have this generation of the 1960s kids, the 1962 people, when I know I'm bringing in a little bit of the Western, the Uranus Pluto conjunction is just about to begin. So it's like a huge epicycle, which is in Virgo, this tropical Virgo. So by the sidereal, it is Leo. And that's when I think this generation of 1962, it begins 1961, and then the 1962 comes in. And then January of 1962, there is like this huge buildup of in Capricorn. As Saturn is there, there's like a whole host of planets
Yeah, I
there.
think there were like eight planets in
Yes,
Capricorn then actually.
absolutely. February 2nd, because I know personally a lot of clients, close friends who have that configuration. And maybe we can have a look at the chart in a bit. But what is interesting in my view is that, you know, if we see this, there was a big freeze that happened in Britain
Yeah.
on the 22nd, right? And it lasted for a good 4 or 5 months.
I remember it well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
It
you
was-
do? Do you?
yeah,
Okay.
well, you couldn't get the toilets froze, and coming home from school with the parents working, we had to. I was about 10 years old, 9, 10, and we had to just stand outside in short trousers in the snow, knee
Wow.
deep in snow till the parents came up.
Right,
And
right.
the toilets froze. I mean, the water in the toilets froze. I remember that well.
Oh my gosh, that's serious freeze, yeah. Now, obviously, obviously, this is when we have so much of buildup of Makar. Makar is Saturn. It's ruled by Saturn, the sign of Capricorn, night strong, extremely potent. In terms of, and of course it is connected with Shishir Ritu. Shishir is the season of winter, and so we are in the thick of winter. But what is really interesting is that there was also at around the same time, there are some major stuff happening in terms of like medicine and especially biochemistry and the genome project and all of that. So there were these some things I pulled up because this is going to give us a lot of clues as to how this whole COVID thing and the vaccine, which is going to be this like hot topic. The other thing is that because of this buildup, there was also, I don't think if you can see this, I can't I think it's too high up. January to April in 1962, in South Wales, there was a breakout of smallpox, right? And some 900 people were infected, and then it spread all the way to Bradford, all the way to Middle England and Essex and all that. So that is really interesting. Paul, do you remember that?
I don't remember that, to be honest. So I was only about 9, so I remember the freezing cold, but I don't remember disease sweeping
Yeah.
anything. I mean, I just wasn't reading the current affairs at the time. So
Right. So, so obviously they just got people vaccinated, and and of course that sort of went away. But I'm not going to now go back into further into, because I haven't done as much. But there are at various points some breakouts of breakouts of epidemics that have happened with the Saturn and Jupiter and Makar buildup. But I think going forward, this is my, but before that, I'm also going to do a little sharing of, hang on, a new share, which is, I love this website called the Atlantic. Anybody familiar with this?
No.
no,
Okay, yeah. Now this is a really fascinating, and I think it's the pictures, the imageries is absolutely beautiful. Can everybody see this?
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. See
Wonderful.
the aerial view of the space needle surrounding in Seattle in 62. I mean, some of this is absolutely beautiful photography. And then they had this thing about the first room size electronic computers. So here he is posing with I mean, this is pretty crazy, right? All these innovations. Um, and then you have uh, this kind of the car, the blue bird, which makes an attempt across the world in speed record in Lake Eyre, Australia. And yeah, that's pretty. The model's wearing an ample golden that's absolutely beautiful and stunning. Very Capricorn as well. Look at those colors, very Ketu like. Now, that is the other thing, you see, right now, over the next 1.5 years, Saturn will be in its own Swakshetra in Capricorn, and then it moves to what do you call Aquarius in its Mool Trikona. But throughout, Rahu and Ketu is aspecting it through Taurus. With Capricorn, there is a Rashi Drishti and a Graha Drishti, and as well as when it moves into Libra, Aries. Now, tell me, guys, is that not so? I mean, this is all about innovation. I mean, of course, there's going to be dead bodies piling up. Pardon my French, but it's like horrendous. It's like blood. It's going to be a bloody battle. We won't. I'm not going to mince words. I'm Scorpio Lagna. I cannot mince words. But when we talk of Makar, it is the graveyard. It is the cemetery. That it has the energy of that. The Kali energy is very, very strong in that. And so we are going to see a whole host of things piling up in terms of, disease and death. But from my view, I think it is sort of a bigger picture we have to look at, because when Rahu and Rahu is in great dignity, as is Ketu in Swakshetra in Scorpio, when they come in, they are like the maverick team. They will be like, okay, this is not working, we need to innovate, we need to bring in this kind of stuff. I just see a lot of trend of all this stuff, like, people not really believing the wider media and the governments, which they will fall invariably, and the ones which are replaced will also be, I suspect, no good. Even they will fall at some point, and somehow I feel it'll be the law of the people. What do you reckon, guys? Come on, help me out here.
Well, Rahu Ketu, it's karmic retribution. It's the cycle of the universe.
Yeah.
It's the universe adjusting, and justice, truth has to manifest.
I was in such a good mood. I was so happy when I so happy.
It's doom and gloom.
I think I need a cup of tea.
Okay,
Yes.
but listen, another thing I want to see. Look at this. Look at that. This is also the Vietnam War, when US at 62, US marched into Laos in Vietnam. And look at, this is like, oh my gosh. And remember, there was a huge, people were absolutely against going into Vietnam. The Americans, lot of the America, and there was a huge movement.
But it defines America in the 60s, the youth movement of the 60s, the universities.
Yeah.
Kent
Yeah, a
State.
lot of protests.
The protests, the deaths.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is the same. And I wouldn't, this year and going forward, I just feel, I don't know.
So what you're saying, Sonal, is that what's happening now with the build-up in sidereal Capricorn,
Yeah.
which tropically is the build-up in Aquarius, which is resonating with what happened in the early 60s, 1962, and there was a similar build-up.
Yeah.
So you're saying we can learn from that?
Yeah, absolutely. But there is also another thing that is going to be very different, because I feel this time it is going to be different. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I just think that at this instance, because Mars is slightly away, and and because at that time, I think that was much more acute. I think we are much more conscious, the sense of spiritual consciousness and moving towards a more holistic approach to this problems of ours is going to be more in focus, in my opinion. So I don't think so. It's like even the Bitcoin. I mean, Naomi will be able to even tell us the whole Bitcoin thing, the whole alternative currencies, they are going to take on a life of its own. They probably already have,
They already are.
Yeah,
Mm.
but I just think because people are not going to trust any kind of system, and Capricorn is all about the systems. You see, that's the trouble with Capricorn, is the 10th house. It's the natural Naisargika 10th house. So it's all about governments and systems and structures. And when Rahu and Ketu, I mean, Ketu is like absolutely, he is super powerful. He's going to say, forget it. It takes seconds for Ketu to destroy something. And Rahu is like, absolutely like change. There's a complete, unless you transform, there is no way. Our whole approach to death and disease will have to transform in a huge way.
But like astrologically, if we look at,
Yeah,
is it not rooted in Saturn, Jupiter conjunction in Abhijit that has just taken place in the last few months?
Yeah, but
Hmm.
that's it's I think it doesn't. In April, Jupiter moves to Aquarius for about a year, and then it'll move to Pisces. I think it'll be I don't know, Nathan.
Jupiter,
Retrograde.
it will
Retrograde.
retrograde back into Capricorn after a few months.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's
It goes into Aquarius properly, I think, in end of
November.
November.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think until and unless Jupiter hits Pisces, we are going to then feel the, what we have been building up to, all this holistic approach and all this, even the vaccine will be a little bit
Hmm.
more perfected. But I think the vaccine is really not the main thing. It's not a magic bullet. What would have been and would be a magic bullet is giving people the idea that the whole system approach, that hey guys, the human body is designed to combat viruses. And so in order to pump in research into saying how do we build better immunities, and how do we amp up the immune system rather than bring the immune system down, which I feel the vaccine is going to, it is going to lead to a little bit of an immunity disorders. I
I
don't
think
know.
I think you have a point there. That reminded me of, you go back and read, these aphorisms about planetary conjunctions, and in Saravali, one of the words that he uses for this particular sixth planetary conjunction, albeit in all the signs, of course, being in Makara, it's going to be more heavy and karmic weight to it.
Yeah.
But one of the first words he refers to there is nripasya. And nripasya has a couple of meanings. Nripasya, first of all, can mean to do with the king, to do with leaders, but that, they are watching, they are observing, they are punishing. And it speaks to, the Makara as the vehicle, that man beast kind of vibe, or the sacrificial victim, the
Yeah.
man as the sacrificial victim under the king's order. That has got that feeling of nripasya to it.
Yeah.
And that's how a lot of people feel with whatever our leadership, so-called leadership, is doing, whether it's Brexit management, whether it's the vaccine management, the COVID relief management in various forms. They are supporting of the different national private healthcare systems in every sector of society, also the financial economy, which is going to become a big feature for the year. We are feeling rapasya about it, because, and that is the possibly the impetus for future, malcontent amongst the population, and discontent and riots and protests, which we might see. So, which we have seen, So, I found that to be interesting, that the first word that he used there was rapasya, that this conjunction of Sun, Moon, Mercury, Jupiter, Venus, and Saturn. And that is for any sign, that was the first word he used.
Yeah, absolutely. There will be extreme. I mean, we are already fed up. Worldwide, whoever I talk to, it's sort of like the lockdown has got people's head in, and and I don't want to go into the territory of this whole conspiracy thing, because it's like there's a
Yeah, no, it's not
conspiracy. There's
not
also a
relevant.
conspiracy fatigue among people. It's like, oh my God, not
Yes.
that again, you know.
Yes.
But
Mm.
Yeah.
but the thing is, the fact is that I think with this, this will have far-reaching effects into the future,
Mm.
this whole
Mm.
configuration, because what it will do is it will wake up people to how to take charge and
Mm.
find themselves, you know, the more and more power which they have lost completely.
Mm.
And
Yes.
I just think that the governments also have been treating, you know, very manipulatively, and economically making people like sheep, you know, lockdown now, lockdown till March, then till July, you know, this is like herding sheep, right?
Mm. Especially where we see like the application of rules are somewhat paradoxical or contradictory to each other. You know, like I say in South Africa, you know, we're not allowed on the beaches, but you can travel on domestic airline flights without a test. So
Yeah.
people are saying, well, if the rules were applied, you know, with logic and rationale and science behind it, and you know, in a
Yeah.
sort of fairness, I think that's how what everyone's attitude was with the first lockdown all around the world in March, was that okay, we're all in this together, clap hands, bang your plate, whatever, you know, show support for the medical staff. And I think we've lost that. So we've gone, you know, really lost that so far. And coincidentally, I'm sorry, I'm focusing on this Saravali thing.
Yeah.
This the next word he uses there is Shanti Puto, which is we are learning patience. You learn patience to be, and he uses the word subhaga with that, which means, you know, it's like patient wealth, patient earning. That sense of okay, it's not coming as quickly as we want, whatever it is that we are getting. Because Makara is also about bhaga. Bhaga Aditya is the
Yeah.
Aditya for the Rashi, you know, the archetype of the sun that is controlling the resources that are accessible, that everyone should share around the world. So, you know, work compensation kind of thing, you know, you enjoy things from the work that you do. And are we seeing that? Are we working hard? Are we getting the results of our work? People's pensions, people's savings are being depleted. And insurance companies also coming under stress. So it
Absolutely. Yeah.
the shoka of Makara Rashi, the grief that is a potential there, is something, you know, maybe we can't be patient. Our patience is really being tested.
Yeah, but that
Uh,
is
with
why
the-
I feel that the power will eventually, there'll be more and more people beginning to trust into, it'll pave way for people to begin to trust their own selves in terms of, like, you know, finding more information on alternative
Mm,
stuff and holistic
mm,
approach and their own
mm.
currencies, living more and more off the grid. You know, all of
Yes,
that is going to just gather super momentum.
it's
Um,
true.
Mm.
and I mean,
The
it's in 62, even they had this famous Cuban missile crisis. This is a
mm,
great
mm,
resort. I mean, the imageries here are, photographs are absolutely beautiful. So you see, there's like this whole Cold War with Russia and this whole
mm,
missile, and then the Vietnam. And so you see, there was war. And that
mm.
gives us a very good clue when we reach the Chaitra Shukla Pratipad chart of the US, you know.
Yes, it does. It
Yeah.
So
does.
anyway, let's move along. So
Mm,
there's loads, guys. Anyone that's Fidel Castro there. Uh, a revolution. Anyway, let's move to see. There's also another thing: the drinking water and all that. You know,
mm,
there's a lot of because the mirror sign, the opposite sign is Cancer, which is to do with water and cleanliness. And, you know, I mean, vaccines
mm.
is about cancer, it's all about healing, right? So we,
Hygiene.
yeah, hygiene,
Yeah.
healing, water based, you know, medicines and healing through water. So it's all about Ketu and, you know, the needle and, you know, the vaccine, as well as cancer, you know.
Mm,
So I think the whole focus will be a lot on healing. Obviously the
mm,
opposite sign. So
mm.
anyway, let's yeah, beautiful imagery, you guys agree?
Yes, good.
So, mm.
The thing I'd say, just to add, I mean, I agree with everything that's been said. When we had this build up in around about 5th of February 62, we had all the visible planets and K2 in Capricorn.
Yes.
I mean, that's a goal of yoga, all the planets in one sign.
Yes.
It's quite a spiritual thing. I mean, the point I would make, and I mean, as a Vedic astrologer, I don't really look at the outer planets a great deal, but I'm starting to do so with the because of the mundane astrology that's prevalent at the moment with all the world events. But of course, at the moment, we do have Pluto in Capricorn that's creating a lot of the distress in the world, being conjunct Saturn. And of course, Pluto's going to be in Capricorn for 20 years. So even when Saturn moves out in a couple of years' time, it will still be having so you might say any direct effect, since Capricorn is lorded by Saturn. But back in 62, where Pluto was in Leo, so I mean, it rather suggests that the current situation may even be more severe than 62 in its which augments what you're saying in a sense. The Chaitra Shuklas will show that the planets are in 5 signs. So the character, so at the present time, we have this build-up that's coming in Capricorn with Mars in Aries. So that's planets in 2 signs, which is a yoga, which the character of that is the mind. So it's like Agni it is the moon. So it's like Agni going to the mind. So the mind can get heated up and cause great agitation. So that's likely to be the consequence of this build-up in Capricorn that's happening at the moment. Once we get the full thing.
Absolutely.
So it's like a form of insanity.
Yeah, but it is. You have to really raw. I mean, I think this, and then we'll move to the Chaitra Shukla. But I have to say this, that I think we have to look at like it's like we are looking at, oh my God, this virus and this lockdown and this thing and, all this. But if we just, it's like taking a little bit of a larger focus, and rather than putting it into being like a fish in a fish bowl, stretching it a little bit and saying, what is a bigger perspective? What is it trying to teach us? What is it trying to get us to evolve into? And then we begin to see that it's pushing us towards innovation, in every realm.
There will be all that. I mean, with planets in 5 houses, as we're going to be seeing, that's the focus there is on Jupiter. So there's going to be a feeling of being trapped and trying to break free, which of course resonates with the Kal Sarpa and the Yama Yoga that we're going to be seeing.
Absolutely. I mean, we can see it. Absolutely. I agree. So basically this build-up is all about hey, and unfortunately it's like the cliche saying, right, that you have to break a few eggs to make an omelet. So I guess we have through the agency of death and all this disease that we are seeing around, and this entrapment.
I think also it's the Makara, Capricorn. Let me use the English words. Capricorn is the natural 10th house of the zodiac, and which is it's the controller for wealth as a Kendra archetype, but it is also financial.
Okay, he's gone. I think he's got
The one thing I would point out is when we talk about death, because I think there is going to be a lot of conflict coming, but the actual death, certainly in the UK and I think in America, is no greater than any other years. So it's being hyped up by government to give a narrative which doesn't align with reality. We all know COVID is an unpleasant and deadly disease, particularly for vulnerable people. We had it in my house back in February before it became such a big deal across the country. So it's real, but there's no more people. The facts are there's no more people dying this year or in 2020 than in previous years.
So we've had 100,000 people die in the winter?
They're the government. They're the ONS statistics, the Office of National Statistics from the government.
See, I think the Fauci, the whole thing began with Fauci when he started to classify anyone who got COVID or got was afflicted with the virus was like, it's like a case. Case is when the person
Sorry about that.
actually passes away. I think there's a big confusion because they're counting anyone who's got a virus as a case.
Well, people dying of cancer going, the anecdotal, but that the statistics show that there's only been about 4,700 people in this country, the UK, that's died of COVID as opposed to dying with COVID. And they do 28 days and all this kind of thing. How many people have died within 28 days of, eating a ham sandwich?
Yeah, absolutely.
You can do anything because the government has an agenda, and it's not a conspiracy. It's sweet reality.
Yeah,
It's the government's own figures, but they actually do say this. If you listen to what they're saying, that they do say all this, but of course, that gets lost amongst the blizzard of propaganda that's been put out. So we all know it's bad. We all know it's bad. I mean, I wouldn't want it by any means, but and I think there is going to be a lot of conflict coming this year.
Yeah,
and there is going to be, I think there will be blood on the streets, but
absolutely.
I think we need to make sure that, as far as I'm concerned, the pandemic finished last spring.
Right.
Paul, you don't agree with the figures that are coming out from the Office of National Statistics or from the government? That
I do. Well, I mean, the figures coming out from the Office of National Statistics paint a different picture to what's been put out in.
Well, they're saying it's more than what the government have said. They're saying it's over 120,000 in the UK.
Who've done what?
Who have died from COVID?
No, died with.
Don't agree with it.
Died with COVID. The obscuring the figures. Dying from COVID is a different matter.
See, the thing is,
I can't see the difference anyway, that's another conversation.
Well, if you had a cold and you got run over by a bus, I mean, what have you died from the cold, or have you died from being run over by the bus?
exactly.
No, you're saying have died with COVID or from COVID.
Yeah, there's a difference.
Okay.
There's a difference in the statistical. Is that what you're saying? In the
Yeah,
presentation?
well,
I mean, viruses.
the ONS is the official government statistics. I think they've said about 4,750 of people have died from COVID as opposed to with COVID. And
So they died of something else, but they had COVID as well.
Yeah.
Which has made it worse.
And that's not clear. What they're saying with COVID is you've had a positive PCR test, and they're now saying it's been known a while. The PCR test doesn't detect COVID; it detects remnants of, I think, the RNA, which everybody's got anyhow, so they can come up with any figure they like.
But except I was listening to Dr. Shiva of the US, and what he mentioned, and because he's a scientist and his main thing is to do, his work involves biotechnology and all this, and he's an immunologist. And what he said was that MR whatever
mRNA,
which we all have, but we have it in our DNA structures. What they're doing is they're injecting it into and invariably it'll land up in the bloodstream, which is not how it's meant to be. It's not meant to be floating around in the blood cells. And so that's why he says that you have to be very careful, because it's not meant to be floating in the blood. And so that's why I think they have not, the complexity of the human body, and especially its immune system, is highly, it's complicated, it's complex, and we don't know so much.
Well, it's an experimental technology.
Absolutely.
Yes, it is an experimental biotechnology.
And they haven't done enough testing about
it takes about 10 years, maybe more, to evaluate the medium to long-term effects, not 10 minutes. They're going
It's
to find out what the effects are by giving it to millions of people, and
Absolutely.
people are dying from
So
I don't think-
taking of
tell
action.
me who benefits most if these are done in a hurry, the vaccines and all that, and then they're
Big Pharma.
Big Pharma.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
So
then we are talking of this whole Makar thing, the whole, they don't care about the lives. They're not looking for
Yeah.
like, hey, let's put money in long-term research on how to amp up the human immune system and properly, how do we do that, which can tap, because the human body is perfectly capable. We are like walking viruses, we all have millions of bacteria and
Yeah,
viruses
we need
within us.
the viruses
We
were
need
on
them.
the earth before the human race was.
Absolutely.
So
And they mutate every time. There's nothing special
Absolutely.
about mutating virus.
Can I
we
ask?
are
Can I
we
just
are very
ask a question as to
Yes.
why would the government do this? Are they trying to oppress us? In some
yeah. So
Oh, that-
why
that-
would
I'm
the
taking
government come with a
I'm taking
that's a
I'm
big question.
But
I'm
that is
taking
people
those stand a
killed?
little
Why would the
bit.
government do
one
this?
sec, guys. Let Jill finish. Yes, yes, Jill, go on.
No, my question is, if the government are hyping up figures and saying 120,000, which the government got a lot of stick from this week, because we've got one of the highest death figures in the UK in the world, and we shouldn't have really. But why would the government do it? Why would the government oppress people like this?
Well,
Can
it's
you
happening.
think
It's
from your
happening. It's
chart
happening. It's happening
why?
round. It's happening
Because they will
round the
have a
world.
backlash from people in the end.
No, they,
Yes.
And I agree
well,
with
maybe.
you. I think there's
Will
going
be
to
a
be blood on the
backlash.
streets. But
Yeah.
why would the
They
government?
might not. They might not be, look. Again, I'm going back to the word rapasya. That's how we've been talking is exactly all the concerns of, are we being the victim? Are we made the victim by the king? What is the king doing to us? This is that feeling, and we may say, okay, the government's doing it, or they're not doing it, or the figures. Those are all incidental. When this all clears up, someone's going to have to be accountable, and I think that collectively we're going to be looking for that, because if things come up later on that were not done properly, that things were pushed under the carpet, or maybe they were not, I don't know, right? We don't really know these days with the media also blasting from different perspectives. Information and what is true, that is not the strength of Capricorn. That is not Capricorn is money and the people that have power to make money. And we can see with the different vaccines and the different multiple doses, it is, as Sonal's saying, they're managing a disease, they're not stimulating health. And so that conversation also comes into play.
But
And
they
it's
are,
going to,
see, that's the thing, Nathan. They are tackling the disease. It's like a stopgap symptom. It's like, hey, I've got a little bit of hurt. Let me just put a little band-aid and let's see let's produce more band-aids. But the fact,
Understand that what modern medicine is effectively is a firefighter. Modern medicine is about dealing with
The
disease. It's either surgery
allopathic concept.
or it's drugs, chemistry. It's
Yeah.
firefighting.
So we can also take the stand that, look, maybe they're doing the best they can given what they know. We can also take that stand as well.
I think so.
But
I also think the same
it's,
too, to a certain extent, that
yeah,
they're doing the best
yeah.
they can.
Yeah.
yeah, but I still think it's not, yes, they may be doing the best they can, but I also think that there is a definitive economic gain from pharmaceutical and other
Yeah, for sure.
corporate structures, and they are like, they represent the Capricorn, but they are not willing to put the money in building health.
Because they're capitalists.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. But it's more than capital. I think we
Crony
are.
capitalists.
It's
Yeah. I mean, we remember that they all got legal immunity before any
Yeah,
of this
they're
was went out.
indemnified. I mean, we've seen the
Indemnity.
biggest transfer of money from ordinary people to big business that's ever happened. I mean, the people running these things have made trillions of dollars. All the billionaires have made even more billions. So if you ask
absolutely.
it, what the people who fund the advisors to the government, You know,
And do
these
you know,
age, they're funded by people like Gates,
Mm.
Yeah.
Foundation, and big business. So they have an
Yeah.
agenda. They're all
Yeah.
making money out of it.
absolutely. And you know what? Nobody is, do you know this particular vaccine? You are not, they have set up the whole structures so perfectly, the legal system in the US. None of these companies, you are able to sue them. Like if there is a negative effect on
But they've been
someone.
indemnified.
Yeah,
I think,
absolutely. Can you
I think
imagine?
the UK government has set up some funding for people who they know is going to be affected. I
Mm.
think it's potentially up to 120,000 K, but
And
per person, it's not shouted from the rooftops. You know,
we're also seeing the other manifestation of Makara or Capricorn, sorry, in the sense that yes, the vaccine may have will likely have long-term consequences, but and that may be a good thing. We could have oh wow, suddenly we never thought this could work, and we have a side effect that we didn't think we would have, that we actually are needing to have. That can also happen, like the discovery of penicillin and stuff like that. Something happens that we didn't expect. So I'm sorry, I'm just trying to be the voice of hope a little bit, but also people that have had the disease and have recovered are also having long-term effects lingering as well, and that is also a Capricorn, sort of characteristic. It draws out.
Yeah.
Things draw out.
Yeah. Right, I know. Thank you for that. I think we need to now move to the charts. Here's a quick one for. Can everybody see this? The Makar buildup on 9th of February.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yep. So the 9th of Feb is going to be a very Jill, your birthday.
Mm.
This
It's
is all leading up to Valentine's Day, hey?
Yeah, absolutely. So
Yeah.
this is going to be really, I think it's kind of like typically you would think, as you mentioned, that Capricorn is a very, if people with moon in Capricorn or Capricorn Lagna or sun in they have a innate sense of patience. Remember, they're ruled by Saturn. There's a great sense of patience. But hey, with so much stuff, it's going to really wear thin, if you ask me. And I think one will have to be catapulting towards um, the sign of Cancer, where we would be desperate to find the healing that we really need, and that's
Yeah.
where I feel that we should, rather than, the Rahu and Ketu will hopefully come to the rescue, because bear in mind, Rahu is a maverick and Ketu is kind of, intuitively it knows what to do, and they
Mm.
both are in very strong positions. So hopefully they will, steer towards more sustainable, healthier, and more sort of immune friendly solutions, rather than, economically driven. But that will come only from people. And yes, as Jill said, there will be blood on streets. There is no doubt about that.
Quite talk.
Sorry.
Yes.
Well, you're basically when you see a build up like that, and if it's resonating, when you think at the beginning of the 60s, what happened, with John F. Kennedy, the Vietnam War, and if this period is resonating, but it's like a step up from what happened in the 60s, you also shortly after the beginning of the 1960s got flower power,
Yeah.
and the hippie movement. You
Yes.
had people rebelling against the establishment, and I think that I think that will happen if they oppress us, and if what we're hearing is true, that we're going to be in some sort of restrictions for this year, the whole of this year, until we all got vaccinated, then I think you are going to have a certain amount of rebellion. I think we're already seeing the start of it, where you had the big party in North London, and you had somebody arranging a snow fight in Leeds, and they got fined lots of money. I think people are getting fed up and losing their patience with the way the government in the United Kingdom is actually organising all this.
Fancy being fined for organising a snow fight. snowballs.
Mm.
I mean,
That's crazy.
I mean, a man was arrested in a park. I assumed it was London, but I don't know where exactly. And he was. It said so. He was handing. It was a soup kitchen. He was handing out free soup to people who were hungry. The police
Right.
arrested him and took him away in handcuffs.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's the other thing.
For free soup. I mean, you can't be compassionate.
Right.
It's gone
That's
beyond.
what
That's
what Sona was saying. We need to look at the opposite sign, that is Cancer and the moon and compassion and togetherness. I know at least for Africa, what was happening in the 60s was early 60s, late 50s, early 60s was a lot of former colonies were getting independence from their colonial masters
Yeah, so
and
it
throwing
is
off
all
the
of
burden.
structures. Yeah, all of
Yes, and
yeah.
they were now faced with, oh my God, we have to run our own countries now. And the challenge of that actually has been maybe too much for those governments if we look at the history of Africa and the development of Africa since then. And what we can say right now, that maybe what is happening in this cycle as it returns, is that countries are finally getting off the transition from from colony to own independent nation
Yeah.
is now going to be pushed, at least from an African future point of view. People talk about the African Renaissance and the future of industry and things. That is, there's a lot of talk about that in the African Union in terms of business, and China is obviously involved in that. But
Of course.
that
Yeah.
is that is also just to give the African sort of point of view there.
Yeah. Anyway, guys, I think let's now, thank you everyone for that. Let's move to the, shall we do the United Kingdom first or?
Yeah.
Okay, let's do the Chaitra Shukla for United Kingdom. And then we'll look at the Mesh Sankranti for UK. I know, Paul, you mentioned that you look at both.
Well, you've got to look at the ingress of the sun into Aries to see who the Prime Minister is going to be. Now, the UK does have a monarch who's the head.
Yes.
And there's various ways of looking at that. There's several things. I mean, the Lagda Lord itself, you might say, represents the Queen, the Makara, which is Mars, and also the Day Lord, which is the Sun. So you can say all these represent the monarch in this country. In America, it might be the president.
Of course.
But in the UK, and then to see who the Prime Minister is, well, that's the 10th Lord, and I think the Amachi as well. But also you can look at the Mersha Sankranti to see when the sun moves into Aries, so 0 degrees Aries, and the day lord there, which happens to be Mars.
Okay.
You take that back to the Chaitra Shukla. Chaitra Shukla being when the sun and moon are at the exact degree in Pisces, which is
let's have a look at this first, and then we figure out what are your thoughts. Anyone, guys?
The two main things is that we have Akal Sarpa, which is not seen as a positive thing. Now, last year, this year, and next year, we have Akal Sarpa, so it's 3 years, and then after that, I think Mars breaks free. So we're not really going to see any relief until 2023. So all the 3 years, 2021 and 22. The Chaitra Shukla has shown a Akal Sarpa for the world. So there's this feeling of being restrained. And of course, all the planets are moving towards Rahu. So we're moving towards the teeth of the demon, the mouth of the demon.
The big corporation people.
Yeah. And of course, we also have, within that, we've also got this Yama Yoga, which, for the UK, we have Saturn in Capricorn initiates this yoga, finishes in Mars in Taurus. Okay, so that's a feeling of death. Yama is death, but also a feeling of restraint. So I fear that we're going to be feeling restrained for another 2 years.
Yeah, I am with you on that. If everybody can see this, I have taken the Chaitra Shukla to 2023, where Jupiter goes in Pisces. Okay. And this is a very positive thing. So, Paul, I would say, coming back to 2021, I would say that when Jupiter goes in Pisces is when we will feel like we can breathe a little bit. There is maybe a
it,
relief.
well,
Well, that's another
yeah,
year away.
you don't mean Aquarius.
Sorry.
It's in.
Um,
You mean Aquarius or Jupiter or Pisces? Do you mean Aquarius or Pisces?
No, Pisces.
well, it's going to go into Aquarius full time, because
Aquarius.
it's going to go retrograde and go back into
Retrograde.
Yeah,
Capricorn.
absolutely.
I think it's the 20th of November, so it
Yeah.
goes
Mm,
back.
mm.
It goes back into Aquarius, and I know people are saying this will provide some relief. Then obviously, once it goes into Pisces, so much the better. And then in a couple of years' time, Saturn will be leaving Capricorn, and
Mm.
that itself will be, breaking away from the malign influence of
Yes.
Pluto. It will then finally be free. So that
Mm.
seems to tie up with the Chaitra Shukla.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've got to get Jupiter and Saturn out of Capricorn. The fact that,
Yeah.
Saturn, in this chart for the UK, Saturn is in its own sign, but it's in Makara,
Yeah.
being in the first house. So it's death-like suffering. So I wouldn't be surprised if we take that Saturn, it represents the whole country. So the country is going to feel it's going to be suffering, and that can manifest in terms of civil strife at home. Because Saturn and Pluto, Saturn represents democracy, Pluto represents dictatorship. So we've got this innate tension here.
Mm.
Saturn could also represent the monarchy, of course.
But Saturn also is the will of the people.
It's the demos.
Will of the
Yeah, it's the democracy.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it's democracy. It's
Absolutely.
democracy, and they're going to feel restricted. And we've got Mars, at the end of that. Now there is a parivartana between Venus and Mars.
Yeah.
But you've got to see that Saturn is afflicted. It's in MKS. It's afflicted by Rahu, plus Rashi Drishti from the nodes.
Yeah.
The Sun is afflicted because it's receiving an aspect from Saturn, a Grad Drishti third house aspect. And Mars is afflicted because it's conjunct Rahu.
Wow.
So all the indications, I think there might be some problems with the monarchy this year. Problems in the country, problems in the with the monarchy, death-like suffering. They are both, Prince Philip and the Queen are both getting on in years. I think Philip's 99 now. And there is this parivartana between Venus and Mars. Now, Venus and Mars represent the Prime Minister. So he's going to be under a lot of stress, and this parivartana, which of course is a worldwide phenomena. I just wonder if there's, what does this exchange actually mean? Is he going to be? Will it be replaced by a woman, a Venus, or not? Or I'm speculating here. I'm not being definitive.
That certainly may be true for the USA.
It's a possibility for the USA. Obviously, we'll come to that. It could be.
It's possible even for the UK, though.
Patel is popular within the Conservative Party. I'm not sure she's popular in the country at large, but she's seen as being quite strong. Whereas Boris Johnson is seen as being weak, actually. But he's still popular in the polls. It's still the Tories are still around about the 40% level. It fluctuates.
Oh, okay.
But they are still fairly popular. But increasingly, there's opposition within the Conservative Party to what he's doing. Bringing in laws just on diktat.
Yeah, but that's because his girlfriend is, Boris's girlfriend.
Yeah, we know that. Well,
yeah, exactly.
He does have a Venus problem. But looking at this chart more specifically, I'm looking at the 12th Lord Jupiter in the second house affecting finances. And I'm also looking at the second Lord Saturn in the ascendant, which is a Srimanta Yoga. And that is a Saturn that is very, doesn't have the energy to go after what it wants. And I'm reminded of the Brexit deal and the mismanagement or the delayed management and all of the drama that happened with the leadership there. And currently the UK itself, what is in the Lagna is what is the matter at hand for the government to deal with. And the second Lord being in the ascendant shows that in trying to the other second Lord, which is Rahu, in the fifth house, trying to move forward. And the Rahu with Mars, they're possibly showing that they're going to have to be a bit bullish. Maybe that's the way to sort of go ahead and get something agreed for themselves financially in terms of trade deals, because Libra is the 10th house there. You know, the work to be done is to get the trade agreements and things through.
Yep.
And having the 12th Lord Jupiter in the second house may also indicate that, you know, it's under a Papakartri there of Saturn and Moon, Saturn and Sun. And maybe that shows that, you know, there were rumors about them not following the law of the Brexit agreement and abiding by things. And,
You can forget all that. Britain,
yeah,
Britain
and
will out of Brexit, but I think big companies are going to do okay. It's the
big
smaller
companies,
companies,
okay.
as I said.
Mm.
There's going to be millions of people unemployed very shortly when we have a
Absolutely.
furlough scheme.
True.
And plus, the sign of Libra looks a little bit afflicted because it is aspected by Rahu and Shani. So and not just that, there is Gulika there is A8 there, Mrutyupada there, you know. And bear in mind, when we look at the Tithi here going on, the Pratipad, I don't know why this is not showing Pratipad here. It should be Pratipad.
It's just 1 minute, just 1 minute further into the Pratipad.
Okay. Right. So Pratipad, if we just look at the Panchang, then the Pratipad Tithi falling on a Sunday and the Hora of Surya, Sunday, I think it's a problem. It's a Mrityu Yoga. So I think that there's going to be problems in the 10th house there.
Well, Vedas is Karika for private enterprise, and it's in a fire sign, and it's in a Papakatari. So private enterprise, although I think big companies will do okay, but we know in this country, they closed all the hospitality sector and all this,
Yeah.
and the cinemas, and they seem determined to crush small business. I mean, that's part of a bigger worldwide agenda to try, as we mentioned, to transfer money from the people to big business. They want big business to flourish and smaller businesses not to flourish. It seems daft, but there's money involved. So I think the economy is going to be a very mixed picture.
I think the technology stocks and technology companies will do very well because Ketu is very strong.
Well, Rahu Ketu is, Rahu is innovation. They're both in highest exaltation, so that keeps things going. So there's going to be a feeling that things are keeping going. We're going to restrain some things, but Rahu and Ketu does indicate, I think, that there will be advances in science and medical. That is going to continue.
Yeah.
I mean, we know it's the 21st century. The whole focus is on technology. They're determined to get to Mars. They're determined to push ahead with, biotechnology and the transhuman agenda. So there's going to be all these things.
So AI.
Yeah.
AI. And there's all sorts of things going off in all sorts of different directions. The putting the trying to get human animal hybrids so that they can harvest the organs. I mean, it's a we have to be very careful. It's a brave new world,
Yeah.
And what would you say for Venus as the card for the tourism industry, in terms of travel, and that opening up or not opening up?
Not good.
Good. House in the UK chart, which is home, and travel, the travel industry in the UK is focusing on people holidaying at home at the moment.
Domestic, you mean?
Yeah.
So maybe that is the Venus in the 4th house. It is in directional strength, but under Papakartri and opposite its own sign. So it's like that. We're traveling, but we're not traveling maybe where we would like to, but we're traveling but where we can.
Yeah, exactly, mate. Another interesting thing too, we look at the outer planets, which Paul referenced. I mean, for mundane astrology, Uranus is in the 4th house there with Venus.
Yeah, it's not a happy situation.
But also Uranus is like, sudden, it happens, sudden, quick change. And, there is certainly a feeling around about what's happening right now. It's like a very sudden change that's happening in the world. I know.
Where is the UK getting their vaccines from? Are they producing them locally? I mean, in the same country?
They're making them. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, Fights is I have to be very careful what to say here, but you
Well,
know,
I thought they
Fights
were
has a,
coming from Europe because there was something that they were withholding some of the vaccines, and then they resolved it. I thought they was coming from Europe.
No, it's AstraZeneca's made is the United Kingdom, and there's another
Okay.
one that's just been approved. I think Novavax, which is up north. We're getting the
Okay.
Pfizer biotech from Belgium, and I
Yeah.
think that's what's
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So some of it is coming from. Okay.
Mm.
So
I think
we.
there was an internal kind of, it's kind of, harking to Brexit. What happened was, in Ireland, do we have a kind of an issue around the border between Northern Ireland and Southern Ireland?
Mm.
And they have an agreement in place around that allows Northern Ireland to actually trade within the EU and still be part of the UK.
I see.
And
Okay.
very suddenly from Brussels, Ursula von der Leyen decided that they were going to invoke a rule they had about trade between the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland, because they started to think that this would be a backdoor way in for
Mm.
the vaccines into the UK, and they wanted to control that. It was a political row, and they've stood up and said they made a mistake. That.
the,
Right.
But
Interesting.
so politics is getting involved here as usual,
Mm.
and
Right.
people's lives are going into the second place.
I wouldn't be surprised if it's going to be more friction with on the English Channel, because we have an afflicted Mercury in the third house, and it's in Pisces, a water sign. So conflict with near neighbours in a water sign to me suggests that there will be confrontations in the Channel and perhaps the North Sea.
I think you're right, Paul. Also with the Rahu Mars, there's border problems.
I think all
clashes
the
on the
third
border.
house, third
Yeah,
house is,
Karaka of the third house is with Rahu.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
So yeah, it doesn't look good, does it?
No.
What does look good in this chart? The Jupiter in second house, I suppose, is some
But
little.
even the Jupiter is in a little bit of a pap kartari there.
Yeah, I
Plus,
think everything is going to be in Papakarati for a long time.
Yeah.
We're going to squeeze it where we can.
Well, the overall picture is the Karl Sarpa and that Gala yoga.
Yeah.
I mean, they're the two big things. So feeling of restraint, and of course, everything's afflicted by something because they're all bunched up together. Saturn's affecting the third house. Rahu is affecting Capricorn. Mars is affecting the 12th house of foreign affairs.
I'm just asking about the Jupiter because we learned that grahas in Kendra to the Kala Sarpa can break it if it's benefic. And this is the Jupiter that is in Kendra to it. That can, I think, maybe help.
Venus may be able to break it, don't you think?
It's not in Kendra to the Kala Sarpa. It's in Kendra to the Kala Sarpa. The Sattva. We need to look for the Sattva there.
So basically,
so Jupiter can do something.
Yeah.
Jupiter will always gives some benefic effect. It is the 12th lord and the third lord.
As the Dara Karaka and the Karaka of the second Bhava, I feel a little bit there should be something that can help there.
I think after Parivartana also Venus and Rahu will get together, and hopefully, it will alleviate the
situation. I see. Because that makes Jupiter stronger.
Yeah.
Actually.
Absolutely. Okay. It's exaltation lord. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay. So, I politically, I don't know do you think you see a change? There's going to be a little bit of a dwindling, I think, in political.
Yeah, I think it's interesting what Paul started off with saying. Someone said we talked about the Venus Mars, the Venus.
Yeah, there's a I mean, it's across the world, so it's not going to be
across the world. I think it's interesting that in the UK there's a queen that is tottering along, and in the US there's also a vice president that is waiting in the wings.
Yeah,
I think that's sort of interesting to think about.
I think it's fascinating.
I mean, in France, is Le Pen is currently in the lead. I think the things are going to be there next year. The election.
Oh, is she back on the cards? Okay.
Oh yeah, she's in the lead. She's ahead of Macron. But
Wow.
of course, that doesn't mean anything at this stage, but it's just a point
True.
to be
Yeah,
made.
absolutely.
Mm,
Yeah.
mm,
So we could
Interesting.
look at the France chart as well. But anyway, let's first then
But
move.
it'll be more or less the same as the UK chart.
Absolutely, because
True,
not
true.
much of a difference. Anyway, let's move to the let's move India,
Ah,
or shall we do the
I was
US?
I was going to say a breath of fresh air, but then this was New Delhi, so I changed my mind.
Okay, let's
Okay.
do the US and then we come to
US.
India last.
Okay.
Okay, so there we go. We have a Ketu in Lagna, in Scorpio Lagna, and Jupiter angular, very strong Jupiter,
Very strong.
Good.
very beautiful and strong. And Ketu,
Chakra, I think, is very significant for America.
Mm,
In the fourth house, heart chakra.
yeah.
With
So
Neptune.
basically, the Graha Malika, or basically whatever you can call it, Graha Malika, it is kind of a Graha Malika. It begins in the third house and finishes off in the seventh house.
Seventh.
Both these houses are associated with war, third house and the seventh house.
Yeah.
And don't forget, the sixth house is very much joined to the seventh house over here.
Absolutely. So, do you waiting in the wings? The Venus is waiting in the wings.
Yeah,
Vice
she's definitely
president.
waiting in the wings.
But
Which is
one
very
would think she is coming from the same, she's singing from the same hymn sheet as Biden, but
No, don't think
I
so.
am
Don't think
just,
so.
I'm reserving
don't
my
think so.
opinion on that
Yeah.
because this chart shows there is actually, it's like a hidden, hidden
But
It
antagonist.
just look, this Mesha, this Aries Rashi is Aries sign, sorry, is the sixth house for Biden, where his moon is, and his moon is going to be acting up. He's coming into his what is the dasha we use for illness? Just remind me, Sonal.
Sorry.
The dasha we use for illness,
well,
Shula
for
chakra.
health,
the
Shula.
Shula chakra, is
Yeah.
coming to Shula dasha, where the moon is going to be relevant, and he's had. That moon has been wearing down, and we know that planets in Aries for people that are older cause problems, health problems.
Yeah.
So that has been sort of running along behind the scenes, ticking away. And both of them had their their acceptance speeches when the moon was in Aries as well. I think it was Aries rising also. And here in this chart, we have the exchange happening between Aries and Taurus, Mars and Venus. So, and it's sixth house again, the theme. So I think that is
but the
that is relevant.
Chaitra Shukla, the sixth house can represent the enemy, and the seventh house can represent allies. I know we've also said it's war in a mundane chart, but specifically in the Chaitra Shukla, I think the seventh house. So what we've seen with an exchange between the sixth and seventh lord is potentially showing an ally becoming an enemy.
Yes. Or
Can
an
it also
yes, totally. And not just that the Hora is Venus, which is again in
right,
Marana's Sthana, and
Yeah.
the day lord is Sun. Now, for a Pratipad, like I mentioned earlier, a Shukla Pratipad, the Tithi of Pratipad falling on a Sunday is absolutely a Mrityu Yoga forming. So, it's pretty alarming. There would be more blood on the streets for sure. It doesn't bode well.
is the sixth Paul or John, is the sixth house in the Chaitra also the army?
Yes. Well,
Yes.
it's enemies. But yes,
Enemies.
Mars, I mean Aries, and it's specifically Aries just represent war in Chaitra Shukla. So,
Right.
we have, whichever way you look at it, I think it's indicating.
And
So do you think the military industrial complex is basically been itching to run?
There is
itching to get
absolutely no doubt that the military industrial complex is looking for war. I mean, they were saying this before Biden was elected, and on the first day of his office, I think he moved troops into northeastern Syria. They're talking about going into Iraq, And they're also the military is already planning about going into Afghanistan again.
Yeah, and he sent a new ambassador to Iran or something now recently, I think.
You know, so the American military is, you know, they make money out of it. It's, you know, they're not bothered about anything about conflict. They make money, so you know, you can hear all sorts of things. But the fact is, on his first day, troops moved into Syria, and they are planning increased military activity in Afghanistan and Iraq.
But see, the thing is, Venus is the Gyati Karaka, right? And that
represents the opposition.
Yeah. And so it's obviously definitely a woman, and the opposition in the 6th house, and Venus rules the 7th house of war, where anyway there is a war going on in that 7th house with Mars and Rahu.
Yes.
And it rules the 12th house, which is foreign affairs. So they you know, it's inevitable. They're going to just go for it abroad.
Where's the A7? I'm just trying to find it there. Oh, it's in the
5th house with Mercury and Sun and Moon.
Oh, that is the Shukra A7. Okay.
Yeah, and the finances also is in a Papkartari. You see the treasury, the 2nd house. Sagittarius is sandwiched between 2 malefics like Saturn and Ketu on the other side.
Yeah.
What I think is really sad about everything that we're talking about here is that, you know, the hope and optimism of Ketu being in Scorpio Lagna is being undermined by everything we're discussing here. I mean, Ketu is the flag. It represents the flag, and it also represents the outcast, the underdog, the people who are find it difficult to kind of fit into a society or a culture.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, the afflicted Venus as 12th house does in mundane does indicate war. I mean, there's going to be trouble in America. I think there's going to be poverty. I think the relationships with the world, particularly business relationships, will sour. There's going to be conflict with near neighbours. They've already managed to fall out with Canada, incredibly, over the jobs and the pipeline. You know, and you know, I think there's going to be problems in the military. The note I took was, this is Uranus in the 6th house, unforeseen events, even mutiny in the military and explosions. Particularly in warships. I mean, for the UK chart, I think there will be there's a possibility of fires in entertainment areas or schools. Mars in the 5th house, you see, so afflicted Mars. So you know there is the possibility of in the 2 charts of pyrotechnics.
See, the Ketu can also represent people who are like all living off the grid, who are off, you know, kind of the outcasts of society, the underdogs, you know, all of that. And they will, you know, obviously it's in Lagna, so they will have quite a bit of say. I think they'll just take to the streets, to be honest.
Well, I don't think it's the, I mean, I do speak with people in America. I have a few friends there, and I get the feeling it's not the United States anymore. It's the disunited States. And,
it's in transition to something.
Well, of course,
again, in this chart, you know, this Jupiter in Kendra to the Kala Sarpa is also now in Kendra to the Lagna, and is also giving Nicha Bhanga to that Mercury. So for me, I think the positive of that is from a domestic financial point of view, in Aquarius, the involvement or maybe a rescue from big corporate in terms of economy and stimulus with the government may be a positive thing in the short term. To give some relief in that 5th house.
Yeah, I think for both countries, I mean, I'm pretty sure big business will flourish anyhow. It's a smaller business. So if you say, would the economy be okay? I think overall it probably will, but that wouldn't necessarily filter down to people, you know, on the sort of street corner. I'm sure Zuckerberg will still be rolling in money, you know.
Sure, yes.
Pretty
with government support now.
Yeah, you know, so I mean, that's so. If you say, will it be good or bad for the economy? Well, you know, big business will flourish, you know, and what, and who's going to be taking the money? I mean, you know, it's not going to come my way. I'm pretty certain about that. I'll make that prediction. You know, I think there's going to be corruption in the law. and I think they're still going to be feeling
Mm.
the epidemic. So I think all
Mm.
that's still going to be hanging around for some while.
So how would we assess relief for people financially in terms of the pandemic? Would you look at Shani, the Saturn?
Well, there's good things. It is in its own sign, you know. But I think
Mm.
I think that basically we've got to tough it out for 2 years.
Yes, that's true.
You know,
That's
and
true.
you know, a lot of people are going to suffer, and some will become filthy rich, and most people will get through it one way or the other. You know,
Mm.
I mean, it's not a happy situation. We have to just face that. But you know, it's not yet the end of the world. But
True. True.
I do fear for the America on the streets, because it's such a it comes over such a very volatile situation at the moment.
Mm. Mm.
I think Kamala Harris is going to be interesting politically, and I think she's going to,
Oh yes.
if you look at Venus, I think she's going to bring a healing. Like it's a guru, it's guru. And
Yeah.
when I look at that combust Mercury, for example, Sanjay teaches that the planet that pulls Mercury out of combustion is Rahu. And her Rahu's in her Gemini Lagna.
Mm.
Yeah, but that is
which
if
I
we
think
take Gemini Lagna for her.
if we take Gemini, which I do.
Mm.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I mean, whichever way you look at it, she is going to play a very important role as second half of the year.
I really think so.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
no
Well,
doubt about it.
Everything that Nathan about his health and the health.
she's now. I mean, he was seen at his desk, and she put something in front of him, and he was heard to say, "I don't know what I'm signing," and she said, "Just sign it." So he did. Well, the man didn't know what he was signing. He actually said it.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
so we agree that Venus will be a big player here, no doubt.
It's the 12th Lord, isn't it? So it's like hidden things. So
Mm.
she's the, I could say, hidden power behind the scenes, but I'm not quite sure it is hidden anymore.
I also think a really powerful expression of the feminine archetype that's emerged on the planet. The Me Too movement, women, are the glass ceiling is beginning to crack in more areas of life, where women are, starting to kind of become more in power, more in positions of power and influential in society. And her.
In the 60s, just remind me, when did Margaret Thatcher come into power?
Well, she was.
Because we're talking about the 60s before.
She was the 70s.
She was the 70s.
70s.
But see,
Following from this.
from the Arud Lagna, if you see for Scorpio Lagna, Sun and Moon conjunction is obviously a good Raj Yoga. So, but it's kind of colored with a lot of negative stuff, because from the Arud, if you see, the Sun, Moon, and Mercury are in the 8th house, and anyway. Pisces has got Surya dosha, any way you look at it, so, and it's the day lord. The Surya is also the day lord.
Sun and Moon are in Gandanta, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly. So there's a sense of, it's a very foreboding about,
It's look, it's the Sun Moon is going to be conjunct in every Chaitra Shukla Pratipad chart you look at, but being in the 8th from Aruda, as you said, or the 2nd from Aruda, depending how you go on the axis, it does show the economy. Like that is a major. That's where the Varesha is sitting. That is, something that is definitely. But like I said, the Jupiter in the Aruda and in Kendra to Lagna is, I think, one of the better things here.
Well, Jupiter's always going to give something good. I mean, so I mean, some good and some bad.
So hopefully they will get bailed out. Anyway, let's move. Shall anyone else has to say something, or shall we move to the India one?
The Saturn, you mentioned the Aruda, the Saturn in the 6th on the Aruda Lagna, if we take Leo, of course.
Yeah.
So that's not necessarily a good thing, but So
no, not at all. That Saturn is powerless. It's at Tattva level, so it's powerless to do anything. and plus it begins, it's rendered its power to Mars, and plus that's where the Kal Sarpa head begins, it
In
begins.
the Malika. Oh,
Yeah,
Malika.
and the
Is
Graha
it
Malika, sorry.
for Saturn in Capricorn? Wouldn't you look at
Venus.
Venus,
Yeah,
where
sorry,
Saturn
I
is
meant,
exalted, and
yeah, sorry.
Venus is in MKS and in
Yes.
Papakatari.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then
Yeah,
it eventually goes into
to
Taurus,
Mars.
or at least it'll behave in a very
Then there's then there's the Parivartan. So it's quite a complex situation. I mean, it's volatile.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I wouldn't say that Saturn in Capricorn. Yes, at tattva level, and I would say that the tiredness of everything is also at a mental level for everyone as well.
Yeah.
So I would look at the tattva level operation of the Saturn in that way also.
I mean, the garment industry is gone for a big hit. The Venus, I don't think the garments and entertainment industry is going to recover in a huge way.
Well, the film industry and so on. I mean, Hollywood's probably.
Yeah, entertainment is, I
right.
think, going to take a hit. But interestingly, I think things like Netflix and all of that, where there's a lot of technology involved, I think that's Ketu, represented by Ketu, maybe they will start to do much better.
Well, also film is Venus.
Yeah, that's what I said. The entertainment,
Entertainment, yeah.
Hollywood type things. I mean, you get the feeling with all these things, it's like the sort of Damocles hanging over the whole
Yeah.
situation. I mean, it can go, it's volatile all over the place, and there's a certain feeling of dread hanging in the air.
Okay.
Anyhow, we'll have to see.
Yeah. Now let's see the Indian one. Right. So here we have a Taurus Lagna.
Yeah.
And ironically, now I have to say the day lord that is falling on a Monday. So this completely changes the yoga, where the other UK and US had the Mrityu yoga, which is like a death yoga energy, because that Panchang that day has a death-like energy, and they will see a lot of that. Versus here, which has got Monday, and the Tithi is Pratipad. So it doesn't, it's quite a big.
I mean, for me, the big thing here is that the Atmakaraka is in the Lagna, right? And it's in Parivarta with one of the Lagna lords, and it's sitting with the 10th lord as well, which is Rahu. And so for me, I'm thinking about this Rahu Mangala, and I'm thinking about the India-China border issue.
Oh yeah, that is inevitable.
There is the possibility of war in this as well.
Yes.
Because that's what happened in 1962 as well. Remember when India went to war with China? They didn't have shoes. It was like Hindi Chini Bhai Bhai. What it translates is like when they say Hindi Chini Bhai Bhai, it's like, oh, we are all brothers. Chinese people are our brothers and sisters. But then China attacked, and it was like horrendous.
Yeah, I think similar. This Parivartana Mangala Shukra, and Shukra here is also the 6th lord, in Mangala's Mula Trikona, working sign of Mars, which is about fighting, coming from the 12th house. I think that, it might suddenly change, and we've seen that recently. First there was news that they're in talks, and then suddenly there was a clash again.
Yeah.
And we've seen repeatedly the Chinese sort of one hand says hello, the other hand says poke poke. And I think India's going to get tired of that and sort of push back.
I think there will be. I mean, there's a Ketu in the 7th can indicate foreign powers trying to incite communal strife.
I mean, like the terrorism kind of thing.
Yeah, or just streets agitating. I mean, we know there's,
failed diplomacy kind of thing.
Well, they have a problem with Islam. It may not necessarily be China, but I mean, China is allied with Pakistan.
Is also true.
Yeah, absolutely. Both pose problems. But the beauty is that there is a beautiful yoga of in the 11th house forming with the 2nd lord and the Parijata yoga, and the 4th lord and the 2nd lord in the 11th house. That's
No,
extremely
I think India. I mean, the notes I took down was that trade will be okay, good trade with other
I-
with other nations. I mean, I think there'll be changes. I
Yeah.
think Parliament will have a lot of argy-bargy taking place, and there'll be
Yeah.
changes in the cabinet.
Yeah.
You know, but the trade overall will be
Positive.
fine. Will be positive for India. I think this. You know, we've said communal things that translates into religious disputes. I think they're going to see more of that. And I think the government will enact oppressive laws against some people, and
Yeah.
they will be enforced. So there's going to be agitation again on the streets, I think. But the economy and the trade, I'm fairly certain, will be under auspicious influence.
Yes.
I don't see any threat to the BJP here.
Sorry,
I see them-
what's that, Paul?
I
Can
see-
you? Yeah.
I
Sorry,
see the
John?
BJP. I see Narendra Modi and the BJP holding power.
Yeah, I think there'll be changes in cabinet. I don't think there'll be a change in government.
Maybe. I don't think they're. Yeah, I think they're strong. I think they're.
But I mean,
getting
there's always
stronger.
changes in cabinet. You know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
people come and go. You know.
Yeah. But overall, I think for trade and it looks very positive.
It gives positive on the economy here.
Yeah, I also think with this exchange of Lagna Lord with Atmakaraka and, across 12th and Lagna and the 12th house, there may be issues with international foreign affairs. They may be trying foreign pharmaceutical companies may be trying to bully India. And I think from what I gather, they are manufacturing their own vaccines anyways.
Yes. In fact, while I was there for the whole year last year, there were multiple campaigns like to not use Chinese apps on your phone, to not use Chinese pronouns, to not it was like a mass movement kind of thing. I think the government is pretty serious about it, from what I could gather when I was there.
Okay, Capricorn is the
because they know that
China,
is the trade. Trade is their blood, and China has used trade policies as a tool in keeping other countries at bay around the area. And China has been building their navy. They are now taking over building a new strait through I think Indonesia to bypass the existing one through Malaysia. And there's all sorts of things happening. And India's navy is not that strong, actually. They've been relying on the US. So this, when you're talking about this Pisces sign being sensitive there as well, I'm just sort of wondering, the land military may be okay, but I don't know about the naval.
Yeah. Okay. Lovely. So not too bad then. Hopefully I'm sure they can ease the border situations. Okay, we have some questions. Let me pause the share and let's see I can't somehow see the.
Yes, Naomi, yeah, I was also.
Sorry, what's
but so Naomi was saying the second Lord Mercury debilitated in the 11th, and again I would say the Nietzsche Bhanga from Guru here is very, very big thing. So.
No, I was just mentioning that India wants to ban crypto. Yesterday announced it. So I was just noting the 2nd, 11th.
Do they want to ban it because they had their own plans for that? Or,
yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, but the problem is then it's not crypto. But that's another story. But I just thought I'd mention it.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that. I didn't know that.
Yeah, isn't there there was a big thing happening recently in the US. They were taking down, like people on Reddit were all taking down some stock.
No, that was GameStop's, but I was just, because India has been flopping on crypto, but yesterday it just announced, it just said, no more. We're going to do our own.
Wow, interesting.
Very interesting.
So, I mean, I'm just kind of looking like India leading the way with integrating virtual currency in a way.
I think out of all the three charts, I think India is somehow, I just feel, given the Parijata Yoga in the 11th house, it's a very, very strong, take the bull by its horns and, we can do it and we can wing it. There'll be hurdles in the way, that 12th and first house. But
I also think the character of the or the tattva of the Lagna is very significant. It's Prithvi for India, but for UK and America, it's Jala.
Yeah.
And
Interesting.
I always feel that tattva says a lot about what's going to manifest.
And that is the Lagna of the country in this case, Taurus.
It is.
According to some people. Some people say Makara, but I go with the Taurus.
Taurus.
No,
India.
yeah, but in our parampara, in our tradition, the Vedic tradition, Guruji follows India's
Taurus
chart as Taurus Lagna, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, cool. Anyway, any more questions, guys? Anything to say, Jill?
What you've been saying about the United Kingdom, USA, and India, all that's been happening with COVID and that, and people feeling oppressed and things like that, reminds me of in Mayan astrology. You know, you had the long count and it ended on the 21st of December 2012. Well, I read somewhere that it doesn't. The next long count doesn't start the next day. It what follows is a period of chaos and change, and then the next phase starts.
Wow.
And I believe, I'm beginning to believe that all that is happening across the world at the moment is that period of chaos, and then the next era will begin.
Yeah.
That's true.
A couple of points. I mean, we did have the Jupiter Saturn. It's what John mentioned earlier on in Abhijit, which, it's a 20-year influence. So that's going to there's going to be a great reset. But I'm hoping it's not what Klaus Schwab wants, which will put us all as serfs. It will be a more spiritual awakening because it's in the conjunction. The precise conjunction took place at 6 degrees 40 minutes Capricorn, which is just on the edge of Abhijit, and then both planets were in Abhijit. It's only about 5 degrees span, but it's a mystical nakshatra, so it's something that's not really happened before, and that's one thing. So I am hopeful, and certainly looking at India, like the Lord in the 12th house does indicate hopefully a spiritual direction. For the country, or an increased spiritual direction going to the 12th, notwithstanding the Parivartana. There is the Pluto in Capricorn, which is going to be there, and that's going to have a black cloud over all influences. I mean, it's so it's going to bring problems with ordinary people. And I say Pluto represents dictatorship, so we're seeing the rise of dictatorships around the world, even in Western democratic countries. That they've been very authoritarian, and that's going to conflict with the people. So that's going to take place almost inevitably. And that
also represents the collective unconscious. So I mean, Pluto it's benefic, being that the collective unconscious, what's emerging from the collective unconscious, can actually be very positive because it's Saturn in its own sign.
Ultimately, I mean, it's bringing one. I think I'm really saying is there's a transformation process taking place, which reiterates what Jill said. I think we're in the process of change and flux, and it's not going to be easy. But hopefully, the positive thing is that it will, after a couple of years of turmoil, move in the right direction.
Maybe so now. Can I mention the talk I did on the world cycles? Could I just point to that?
Yeah, go on.
I did in January. I did a webinar, and it's free, and you can get the link if you want to view it. It's on YouTube. That looked at the Vedic cycles from 1200 to 2200 AD. And in that context, there are charts that are relevant for 300 periods at a time. And we are in the middle of our current 300 period. So we're on that turning point that is now happening. And that's in that webinar, I used the one chart and looked at the Vimshottari dashas and timed everything down to the years, and also showed with the Ketu Antaradashas, the sub periods of Ketu, the evolution of technology across the Mahadashas. So you might want to see that to get also context on, because we also talked about the Saturn Mahadasha there started in 2002, interestingly, and that is exactly when the first coronavirus showed up in China. We had an outbreak in 2002 November. And so that one chart and the one dasha, just the Vimshati dasha, and even 9/11, everything is just shown very neatly. And I think I like that on Jyoti sometimes. You can just sort of go into it. So it's there on YouTube if you want to.
Okay, I can share it on Divinations page.
Sure.
I'll do that. So anyway, in just any more questions, feel free. And I am going to, with another colleague of mine, we are going to do a little session on relationships on Valentine's, just before Valentine's Day.
Well, I won't be receiving any cards. I never have and I never will. So you can count me out because I'm bloody fans of that.
So yeah, so
we're all gonna get a complimentary syringe in the mail. Yeah.
well, far be for me to lower the tone, but where they're taking swabs in China at the moment, they're not taking it from the mouth anymore. I've seen a video out of it where they're taking the swab to some point.
I mean, I'd rather have 5 throat swabs than one of those. Thank you.
Yeah, well, the one thing I'd add is if you do the Vimshati, they're compressed for 1 year for these charts. I think at the end of May, beginning of June is whether it's either Mars Venus or Venus Mars.
Venus.
Venus, so there might be some change there, and then it goes from Venus Mars to Venus Rahu, I think. So I think that period might be significant. And then I think in September, around about the 9th, so around about the second week in September, I think we have a Mars. Venus,
Mars Rahu.
So that again it's just two periods this year to keep an eye on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Reference to that Venus Mars Parivartana.
Yes, good point.
And but reminding me of I don't want to leave on a Ketu note, but the Chinese using other places for getting swabs. It's a very Ketu, Scorpio Ketu, the 8th house. And we all know what some of the students who are here, they all know what 8th house. Anyway, we won't go into that. Like I said, I don't want to leave on a Ketu note. Sorry.
Well, leaving us with a great picture in our heads.
Yeah, exactly. So let's just, let's think of nice things.
The head of the World Economic Forum isn't called Dr. Klaus Schwab for nothing, It's
So anyway, so it's maybe
the one thing is that when this new Jupiter cycle we will be with these Chaitra Shukla, I think it's Plavo or something. It's I think it's quite auspicious.
Yeah,
60-year Jupiter cycles, and I think
it's big. Last year a new yuga began, a 5-year period, so it is auspicious. I'm going to put something down on that. So anyway, thank you very much. Any more questions, feel free. And love in the periods of lockdown,
thanks.
That's what I should call
the best thing the best remedy is just to open the pubs and restaurants again, and then that'll be incredible medicine.
Have good food, have nutritious food.
I know, have nice.
have a nutritious pint of Guinness.
Okay, lovely. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Sana.
Thank you, Jill. Thank you, everyone, for coming.
Thank you. Thank you for organising it. Well done.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you. That was very, very informative. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you, Colonel.
Bye. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye now.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.